In Chapter 6, we want to start talking about a thing called symbolic language, a new language using symbols, and therefore we call it symbolic logic. In symbolic logic, we want to do three things. The first thing we want to do is we look at how to change ordinary language into propositions or symbolic language. Then we want to talk about what connectors mean in terms of things being true or false, and then what can we do with these types of things. So we're going to be going to look at this. If you've heard logic and math go together, this is probably the area in which we might see that actually becoming more of a reality. There's some terms. First of all, a proposition is a statement which has a meaning that's either true or false. So this is simple for us. A simple or atomic proposition cannot be broken down. It's in its simplest form. And a complex molecular one is one that's broken down into simple propositions and then put together and held together with connectors. So we break apart like a compound sentence and put it into simple things. So things in terms of commas, periods, semicolons, colons, all of those things become now indicators for us to keep thoughts together. And those is where we'll add in different things such as brackets or parentheses or different ideas in order for it to work effectively for us. When we talk about symbolic logic, we're going to use connectors. And these are the 5 connectors that we use. The tilde, which is the negative sign. The dot, which is conjunction, so it joins two things together. The wedge separates things. The horseshoe deals with complications or implications. And then we have the triple bar, which deals with the idea a bit more of equivalence. Okay, so negation, it's like a negative sign in math. It's not A, so if I see tilde A, it means it's not A. It's not the case that A is false. Or in Wayne's World, A, not. So if you remember that far back, that's kind of dating myself. But you get the idea, it's not A. Conjunction would be it's A and B. It's A, it's also B. It's A, there moreover it's B. Or it's A, however, B, blah, 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 right? And so, once again, we're just thinking of it in terms of joining two things together in a way that says that they are true. So in a conjunction, both A and B would be true. Unless there's a tilde, then obviously they would both be false. But that's the thing that we're looking at, A and B, so they're both true, unless signed otherwise. A disjunction is more of a distinction between the two. It's A or B. Can't be both. It's A unless B. So we know it's A unless this happens, right? Unless A, then B. And then we can look at it this way, which isn't in the textbook, but neither A nor B. And that would be written in symbolic form either way. So this would actually say it's not the case, right here, negative. It's not the case that A or B. And in this sense, it's not A and it's not B, because A would be the conjunction. So when we're talking about this idea of, okay, this is how it can be written and how it can be interpreted. So we'll talk about that more. Then we have conditionals. These are probably the most difficult because notice there's conditionals in both directions. If A, then B. Okay, or A is a sufficient condition for B, right here. A only if B, or A implies B. So when we use these types of verbiage, we come back to this type of symbol, or this use of symbol. In this case, we have B horseshoe A if B. If A, then B, here we have A if B. Or A is a necessary condition for B, or A provided that B, on a condition that B, or A given that B. And so there's a lot of confusion with this, and let's go to page 315 in our textbook. And there's a good illustration. I like this. Okay, so right here, for example, having the flu is a sufficient condition for feeling miserable. Okay, that would be, let's see, having the flu, so F, is a sufficient condition for feeling miserable. We'll put M. So this would be F horseshoe M. Having the flu is a sufficient condition for feeling miserable. Whereas air to breathe, A, is a necessary condition for survival. So there we would put the S horseshoe A, because the necessary condition for survival, so A, it goes first, right? The survival is what would go first, and the condition for survival would be the A. So once again, it's a matter of thinking it through. But this is a great example, so you might want to come back to that from time to time if need be. We'll talk through this in detail in class, and hopefully it'll become a little bit clearer for you. Biconditional is if A, if and only if B, or A is a necessary and sufficient condition for B. Okay? So once again, just to review, B horseshoe A is a necessary condition for B. A horseshoe B is A is a sufficient condition for B. A triple bar B is the same thing as putting these two together. It's necessary and sufficient. So it's both, right? So this is where, when there's no question about whether it's true or false or not, that's where this would come into play. Okay, and so I want to keep that in mind. So it's kind of important, and you can find some of this on page 315 as well. Okay, so we say, all right, where did all this come from? Philosophers wanted language to become as precise as mathematics, and so they put language in a mathematical form so that there would be no misunderstandings. Okay, that's where we get symbolic logic. So if you don't like it, get mad at Aristotle and a few of his friends. They're the ones that did this. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples, and we'll look at those examples right here. And I'm going to jump back and forth between a couple of slides here, so just bear with me. So here we go. Let's talk about the first one. Again, remember to watch for punctuation. Punctuation and the word and. Those are the kind of things that we're looking for. So if we get Sunday off. Okay, so that in itself is a atomic proposition, right? It's a simple statement, and it's true or false. Okay, we are getting pizza and we are watching the game. Okay, so now it's important for us to look at verbiage and how things are said. Okay, so here we are getting pizza and we're watching the game. Tells us that these two go together, right? Getting pizza and watching the game. So those two things, okay, are going to happen, but it's conditional on if we get Sunday off. So remember, if we get Sunday off, so Sunday off would be S. The condition of that, or the result of that, right? The sufficient condition will be we'll get pizza and watch the game. But we have to get Sunday off. So let's go back to this slide. If we get Sunday off, then B. All right, so now let's go back to, this somewhere slide. I'm way ahead of myself. I better get on the right page. If we get Sunday off, right? If we get Sunday off, so make sure I keep my slides straight this time. If we get Sunday off, then B. We'll get pizza and we'll go to the game. So see how it's written? If then. So keep in mind this is the if then statement. Let's look at the next one. If we get Sunday off, comma, we are getting pizza, semicolon. So now here we are getting pizza and watching the game being a molecular statement, right? Proposition. Here we find getting Sunday off and getting pizza. And if we get Sunday off, we get pizza, right? If we get Sunday off, then we're getting pizza. And we're going to watch the game. So notice what happens. We get pizza if we get Sunday off. Okay, watching the game is different than getting Sunday off and or getting pizza. Okay, we're going to watch the game. Here it's saying if we get Sunday off, we're going to get pizza. It's not saying that the game's on Sunday. So you got to make sure that you pay attention to what's being written. What's going to happen? We're going to watch the game regardless if we get Sunday off or we get pizza. That's what this is saying. So once again, it's based on how we see it, then that's how we write it. Now, it sounds complicated. It's not as bad. Let's use an example, and I'm going to hurry. So we're going to put in letters for the simple proposition. So basically, we're assigning our term a letter, and we're going to leave the connecting words punctuation. We're going to use parentheses and groups, and then we're going to continue to use brackets and groups to put groups of groups together, and just remember where tildes go. So let's look at an example. Friends going, that's the old TV show, Friends going off the air is necessary condition for Joey's getting a spinoff. Moreover, Will and Grace having more guest stars and Donald Trump's firing more candidates is a sufficient condition for NBC's getting better ratings. So let's look at how this looks. So here it's written up here so you can reference it. Friends, F, is going off the air is a necessary condition. So F is a necessary condition for J. Okay, that's easy. And we're going to put the semicolon in. Moreover, okay, and remember terminology, this is important. Will and Grace is having more guest stars and Donald Trump's firing more candidates is a sufficient condition for N. Okay, so let's go back to the textbook and we're going to go back to page 311 here. Okay, notice the word moreover, so it tells us about symbols. So it's important to refer back to page 311. All right, so now we've got it written this way. Now let's start putting in symbols. So here we have the original. Here we have it broken down into, we've assigned letters. F is a necessary condition for J. Okay, oops, wrong one. F is a necessary condition for A. So if F is a necessary condition for A, then we're going to write it A horseshoe F, correct? So hopefully you see what we've just done there. So, or excuse me, J horseshoe F. Moreover, Will and Grace and Donald Trump is sufficient condition for N. So W dot D is a sufficient condition for N. Okay. Oops, there we go. All right, so if we have all of this, then what we have is J horseshoe F. Moreover, W dot D horseshoe is a sufficient condition for N. So let's simplify it down. J horseshoe F, moreover, is the dot. We saw that on page 311. And because we have a parenthesis in this, and this statement has to stay all together. Will and Grace and all of this is one long statement, but we have to bring each individual part of that molecular statement down. We're going to put it in brackets. All right? So hopefully you're still with me. I haven't lost you. Okay? And so as a result of that, if we were to write this out in symbolic form, this would be our answer. Okay, now, as you do your homework, think it through piece by piece. Go back to the slides where I talk about the horseshoes, where the A or B and where they're positioned is very, very important. And we're going to see that as we do the homework assignment for 6.1. We'll talk about it in class. Write down your questions. If you don't understand an answer, make sure you bring it to class. We will talk about it by the end of class. You should understand it fairly clearly. I hope this has been helpful more than just reading the book. I didn't find this chapter, this section, to be the easiest to understand. Hopefully I've helped bring some simplicity. Let me know your thoughts.